Welcome everybody to this primer on the sources of DoD tech transition funding. My name's Eric Lofgren. I'm with the Center for Government Contracting at George Mason University. So let's get right into it. So one of the issues that we have here in the Department of Defense is this idea of tech transition from science and technology into programs of record and scaling those for the warfighters. Of course, one of the issues here is the fact that it takes multiple years to even start a program. The Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System, the JCID's requirements, takes 1 to 3 years. Getting money through the Planning, Programming, Budgeting, and Execution system can take 2 to 3 years at a minimum, and then you can start executing getting that on contract. Even with middle tier of acquisition and other transactions, in the best case, it will still take you multiple years and you still have that 2.5 to 3 year time frame before you get money. The historically measured is just 1 year to decide, get funding, and then act. Now, the Valley of Death or tech transition issues happen here with the appropriations. This is not the only source of the Valley of Death or tech transition problems, but it is one of them, and the one that we will be looking into today in terms of what are the sources of execution flexibility that will provide a program the ability to keep working while money is lined up through the traditional methods. So let's take a look at these primary sources of execution funding. First, we'll look at the Joint Capability Technology Demonstration, or JCTD. It's about $100 million a year, and you'll see that on the chart. It's generally technology readiness level 6 through 9. It is actually part of the Office of Secretary of Defense, but it takes competitive proposals from the services to the JCTD program director. It can still take 8 or more months by the time money is lined up. The first 10 years, 2012 through 2022, will show enacted funding. In 2023, we will only show the President's budget requests because appropriations have not been enacted. And on the right here, you will see the congressional mark over time relative to the amount enacted. In this case, JCTDs tended to lose 5 to 10 or 15% per year relative to the President's budget request. And finally, you'll see an icon on the top right indicating what service or whether it's joint, DoD in this case. So let's keep moving on through the sources of execution flexibility. The next one we have is the Emerging Capabilities Technology Demonstration, ECTD. This one is slightly lower, about $50 million a year. It uses 6.3 funding, and it's managed by the Rapid Reaction Technology Office in R&E. It allows for within year of execution proposals that can be accepted at any time. It has a max limit of $6 million per project. The Quick Reaction Special Projects is also managed by the Rapid Reaction Technology Office and now resides within the same program element as the ECTD. It is again about $70 million a year and about $1 million per project. The limit is $2 million. The Rapid Innovation Fund was created in FY 2011 and has always been a congressional add rather than requested. So there is no congressional mark in this case because it is always added. However, in FY 2020, the Rapid Innovation Fund was actually requested $14 million, but appropriators provided zero, and there has been no funding since 2019. However, the Senate Armed Services Committee recommended authorizing the program and providing funding. It will yet to be seen whether there will be funding for the Rapid Innovation Fund in the future. Again, these projects have a limit of $6 million, which is up from $3 million. The next fund we have is Rapid Prototyping Fund. It's not actually a line item in the budget, but it's developed by crediting 3% of overruns from other projects. Now, this fund was developed in the FY 2016 NDAA with the middle tier of acquisition projects such that they would be funded. If you could get an MTA quickly, there needed to be some kinds of funding mechanism to allow it to get started. The Rapid Prototyping Fund was for that. However, it was canceled in the FY 2020 NDAA as well. It started out with a $225 million transfer from the DoD fund in FY 17. The credits ran but were not tracked, or we do not know what that funding amount was, though in FY 2019 there was $119 million reportedly in the Rapid Prototyping Fund. The limit was $20 million, however, it is canceled. The Rapid Prototyping Program is also an OSD program element associated with the Rapid Prototyping Fund but separate. It's about $100 million a year and $10 million per project. It's there to accelerate transition of fieldable prototypes, and it's also managed by the Rapid Reaction Technology Office in R&E. It can take about 4 months to get funding for the next fiscal year. The limits are $10 million per project. The Rapid Defense Experimentation Reserve, or RADER, is a new fund that has been created. It included some funding in FY22 provided under the OSD program element, about $34 million, but reportedly included tens of millions more from sources like the Pacific Defense Initiative. And from each of the services, they have their own RADER accounts in their budget activity 6.4. So there's a number of different accounts that add up to about a $358 million request in FY23 for RADER that will go through competitive proposals and directed by R&E. Now, the Senate Appropriations Committee actually recommended cutting that in half, so we will see how much RADER actually gets in FY23. The Agile Procurement Transition, or APFIT Fund, was also a congressional add in FY22 from House Appropriators. It is $100 million a year, a minimum of $10 million per project, and up to $50 million for companies who have less than $500 million in cumulative Department of Defense revenues. It is a competitive proposal process, and the first 10 have been selected within 4 months of the appropriations passing. For FY23, another $100 million had been requested in the Budget Activity 8 account. It is yet to be seen whether that will be appropriated or not. The last account that we have here is the Mission-Based Rapid Acquisition account. It is not yet created, though proposed for FY23 by the House. $30 million was proposed for FY23, and it's really there to fund Section 871 of the 22 NDAA, which had pilot programs for cross-surface missions. These will be our core sources of year of execution tech transition funding. The next category that we'll do will focus on the Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR program, introduced in 1982 Small Business Act. It's about $1.7 billion of funding a year, but has been growing along with research, development, test, and evaluation. It is funded by a 3.2% withhold from extramural RDT&E funds. This funds Phase 1 and 2 SBIR only, which are about $50,000 to $250,000 for a Phase 1 per project, and $750K to about $1.8 million for a Phase 2. Though, when authorized by the Small Business Administration, you can go over the $1.8 million limit. For example, AFWorks and their StratFi program up to $15 million. Small Business Technology Transfer is similar, created in 1992 with a 0.45% withhold from extramural funds in RDT&E. STTR is different from SBIR primarily in requiring partners with universities, FFRDCs, and nonprofits. A third category of Year of Execution funds is the Coalition Warfare Program. For example, it is about $10 million a year, $1 million a project. There is also the Foreign Comparative Testing Program, which has been found for 2015 to the present, but has gone back to the 1940s. There is also a newer account called Technology Innovation in OSD. Combating Terrorism Technology Support and its associated office is run by ASD SOLIC and is about $70 million a year. The Manufacturing Technology Program, created in 1956, is rather large and is meant for manufacturing technology and getting things into production. It also has program elements in each of the services as well as at the OSD level. Like the Combating Terrorism account, it tends to receive congressional ads every year. The last one that we'll discuss is the J7 Warfighting Lab Incentive Fund, which comes out of Operations and Maintenance account and is not a line item, but is reportedly about less than $10 million per year. These will be called our secondary sources of Year of Execution Tech Transition funding. The services also have prototyping accounts not tied to programs of record. The Army's Technology Maturation Initiative is about $150 million a year and was developed after the Weapons Systems Acquisition Reform Act to drive down risk and increase technological maturity before a program of record. It is a competitive selection by the Technology Maturation Executive Steering Group, chaired ultimately by Assistant Secretary of the Army R&T. SOCOM's rapid prototyping account is actually in Budget Activity 6.3, about $90 million. It uses a broad agency announcement process through AT&L in SOCOM. The Navy's Rapid Prototyping and Experimentation Demonstration, or RPED, is an organization created in 2015. It was not funded in 2022 or 2023, except for it was brought back in for 23 for Radar, so it is not shown here. However, the RPED account was preceded by a previous fund called the Rapid Tech Transition account. The Marine Corps also have a small $10 million account, which is managed by the Marine Corps Rapid Capabilities Office and their Board of Directors. Let's resize the chart because the Air Force Tech Transition account is actually relatively large here, $250 million a year, and was especially large in fiscal year 2018. It now includes $64 million for Radar, which has been removed from this chart in FY23. Each of those projects are roughly $11 to $20 million each of those four. The account also includes an FY23 request, Agility Prime from AFWERX for the first time. That was also removed. The Air Force Tech Transition account is made up of experimentation and prototyping, the former being more loosely defined in the budget justification documents and the latter more tightly, but still relatively open-ended according to mission areas. These are what we're going to call the service prototyping accounts not tied to programs of record. Now, to recap, let's look at the overall sources of execution flexibility that we've discussed, including the core accounts, the SBIR STTR accounts, the secondary accounts, the service-specific prototyping accounts, which we had just discussed. There are also innovative offices which have flexible funding mechanisms that allow them to pursue opportunities in the year of execution. These include the Strategic Capabilities Office, the Joint Improvised Explosive Device Defeat Organization. It also includes Defense Innovation Unit, Space Rapid Capabilities Office, and others. The most significant one here in FY23 is the Space Development Agency, which requested $4 billion in research, development, tests, and evaluation. And then Budget Activity 8, we can also include here potentially as a source of funding flexibility. Now, if we look at this relative to the entirety of research, development, and test and evaluation, we'll see that these potential sources of funding flexibilities for new programs to bridge the technology transition valley of death are relatively small compared to the whole appropriation of research, development, test, and evaluation. Of course, some of these funds, like AppFit, are from procurement. However, in general, this is less than 1% of the total DoD budget, including all accounts. Thanks for watching.